thank you very much for Skyping in tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Not a problem at all.
Now, we've had you on here before in January, which was great. And just to tell people a little bit about you in your introduction who haven't heard from you before, Ben is the director of the Victorian UFO Action Group. Now, you're not actually based in Melbourne, are you?
No, I'm based in East Gippsland, which is up in the pointy end of Victoria.
Okay, right. Now,
Yeah.
you've the radio host for the Ben Hurle Show on KGRA Radio, which is, I think KGRA is a popular online radio organisation, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's based out of the United States, and you can listen to it on www.kgra.com, and it's basically got a great selection of UFO-related programs on there. Richard Dolan has a program on there.
Yeah.
Jill Hansen, Fade to Black. There's a whole host of them, and I do a monthly show from Australia. And it may not even be monthly. I do the shows as I can do them.
Yes.
And it gets a bit of Australian content out there to the wider American audience.
Which you've done through the Nat Geo channel too, haven't you, in the series Invasion Earth?
Yes, that's right. It was probably about 2 years ago now. They contacted me to ask me about the Burke's Flat case from the 4th of April 1966, and Victorian UFO Action had been doing a quite in-depth retrospective investigation of that case, which Bill Chalker had looked at in 1980, and the thing just seemed to coincide well together, that they were doing this program and we were doing this investigation. So I went down to Melbourne and filmed the UFO segment of that series. And if anyone's seen that series, it was basically an attempt to explain all the UFO cases with science. And they neglected one key point when they presented the science side, was that they neglected to mention that Ron's headlights had actually been bent off the road by the object, and they were trying to describe it as mirages and min lights and all these other explanations that if they had really looked at it properly, they would have seen that wasn't the case. So that was a little disappointing that they didn't quite get the facts right for the case, but it was still good exposure for Australian cases. Yeah,
and you're going to tell us about a few cases tonight too. What have you got to report from down in Victoria?
Well, I've sort of gone through our files and had a look at what we've received this year, and I've found about 4 cases that I want to discuss with everybody. The first one is relatively innocuous, and it's probably fairly indicative of the type of reports that we get. Most of the time, reports that come in through our reporting services are typical lights in the sky scenarios. And this case really does highlight that as the first case that I want to talk about. The second and third and the final case are a little more interesting. There's some video footage, a highly credible witness, and they just become a little bit more interesting. And these cases, and this year's been a relatively quiet year too. We haven't had a huge amount of great stuff coming in. So I was reading through the massive amount of lights in the sky stuff that we had, and and a couple of investigations that I did personally as well on 2 of these cases. And I thought it might be nice just to discuss those to see what's been happening in Victoria this year. And also, if I get time too, I want to touch on the Sale RAF base. Yeah. There's a RAF base down here in East Gippsland, which is called the East Sale RAF base. And there's been there's definitely a UFO connection to that base, which I call Sleepy Hollow as far as Australian RAF bases go. So we're a little more on that a bit later.
Okay, well shoot.
Okay. So the first case I want to talk about occurred on the 19th of October 2016 at 4 a.m. It occurred in Noble Park, which is a suburb of Melbourne. And I'll read to you the witness's description of what actually happened. And he's described it as, this morning at 4 a.m, I was woken by my dog as she needed to go outside to the toilet, as dogs often do. So I went downstairs and I let her outside. And I grabbed a drink of water and went outside to call my dog. I looked up in the sky, which was not completely dark at 4 a.m, in October, which I find that a little strange. It was cloudy, and all of a sudden a big glowing spot appeared in the sky. and I could clearly see that it had a headlight, which was not as bright as the spot, but it surrounded the spot. The spot I saw was approximately the size of an old 1-cent coin, so he's tried to give it a bit of perspective in the sky, so it must have been relatively large. It was travelling faster than a plane or a helicopter does, and he could not hear any sound. And it was definitely neither a plane or a helicopter, as there were no flashing lights. And I think a lot of people in this day and age can pretty much spot an airplane and a helicopter, particularly if you live in a built-up area like a major capital city. And he's described this thing in the sky as looking different and strange. As it was flying and he followed it, he could see the clouds moving in front of it. So he's like the clouds were sort of, I don't know if they were boiling, but the clouds were sort of moving, perhaps with some sort of a force field. Not that he says that. And he got a strange feeling the minute that he saw it. And it was more of a curious feeling, as it's something that I've never seen in my life. And typically he wished that he had his phone on him, which was upstairs in the room, because he'd just gone outside to let the dog out, to record this actual spot. The sighting lasted for 10 seconds, and it disappeared from his sight. Now, there's not a lot that researchers can do with a case like that, and it's very typical of what we would receive here for what I would say probably 90% of our reports would come in with something along those lines. So, someone's gone outside, they've seen something strange in the sky for a relatively short period of time. They've thought, damn, what the hell was that? No idea. Might make a report to someone who may care about this type of thing. Now, these sort of reports also for our group do present a bit of a problem to us, because there's a certain amount of admin that you have to do around these sort of things. You've got to contact people, and it becomes a bit, these little cases can bog you down when there's nothing to be really gained. So next year, in 2017, I'm going to streamline things a lot more, so that we're not really going to spend a lot of time looking at those sort of cases, because it just is not worth it. And we're going to set up our website so that it's going to indicate that on the website, that if you've seen a light in the sky, by all means report it. We'll happily log it, we'll happily record it in our database, but there's not much more that me or any of my team can actually do with a report of that nature. So, and that's very typical of what you would see, and that's really all I want to say about that case. So, I'm not sure if I can share screen with you guys or not. It would be really good if I can. This next case is a little more interesting, and he reported it on the 5th of September 2016, but as is typical with UFO witnesses, they often sit on things for a fair while before they actually get around to telling somebody about it. And this case actually occurred in 2014, so it's not that old, relatively speaking, to a lot of cases that are out there. Was it in the 16th of May? And this was in Heidelberg in Melbourne, which is an inner city northern suburb in Melbourne. And basically, he's put it down as being, the time was 18:15 was the time on the 16th of May 2014. And he said he was driving home from work at 6:15, and he took a picture through the open window of the intersection of Rosanna and Manningham Roads in Heidelberg. And he says that he drove through this intersection every night from the same direction near home, but last night he noticed a small, bright, seemingly stationary and steady white light in an unusual and odd position above the Dorevich pathology building. And he says that he knows that there was no light suspended in this space normally, and as he checked it out, a plane flew above from the east, heading west to Melbourne Airport. A lot of air traffic around that area. Red and white aviation lights blinking, as everybody's familiar with. This light was too bright to be a star, and it seemed distant, and that it wasn't above the suburbs. And he's not really sure what drew his attention to it, but he just happened to notice it. And he was that curious about it that he called into the Woolworths supermarket car park just after the intersection to see if he could see it again. And he said it was hidden behind the Dorevich roofline and car park trees. So he wandered 50 metres back to the more open intersection to see the object moving slowly at altitude and southwest direction directly above the suburb. The white light now clearly a long lateral shape, much bigger and flickering every second for what seemed 3 very fast, pure white strobe pulses, following by a pause of complete darkness. No clear shape other than the light was visible, and he can't tell if the whole object he was seeing or the tail at the end of a larger shape. It then veered very slowly to the west, disappeared from street view behind roofs and trees, and it was not low, but it was noiseless. There was no sound coming out of it, and all he could hear was the intersection traffic noise. And he was surprised that his iPhone even captured the odd shape of the image. And he was also surprised that everyone else seems oblivious to it. And I think this is an important point with UFO reports, is that a lot of time you'll say, well, why didn't more people see these things? You know, they're up in the sky, they're bright, they're out there. How come only one person in Heidelberg can actually see something strange in the sky? And I do ask myself that question all the time. You know, these big events where there should be mass sightings and people seeing things everywhere, oftentimes it's one person who's taken the time to simply look up and they see something in the sky and everybody else is too busy looking down.
Do you think that's possible though, that it's not as random as we think?
Yeah, I think so. I do think that, and you know, and I'm certainly open to the idea that that objects can be seen by one person. I suppose that it's a sighting that is orientated purely for that person. So you know, all those things are quite possible in my opinion. And the photograph that he took was of what I would describe, it looks like Aladdin's lamp is what it actually looks like. And it's quite an interesting photo. I'm probably not going to be able to share it in the time that I've got, by the time I figure out how to do that. But it really is an interesting image, and so I found that case to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more substantial. He obviously had seen it for at least a few minutes, a longer period of time, rather than the 10-second object in the sky. So that was interesting. Now, the third case I want to discuss, and I'm kind of moving along here because I do want to talk about sale,
Yes.
and we don't have a lot of time.
No.
So this case was one I investigated personally. It occurred in April, the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, funnily enough, 2016. And the guy who saw this was a retired aircraft or aeronautical engineer. So he's by no means an idiot. And he's down at Rosebud, and if anyone knows Melbourne, Rosebud's on the Mornington Peninsula, so it's right down on the bay, and basically you've got the Port Phillip Bay on one side and the ocean on the other. So this guy at about 5 o'clock in the morning, he'd gotten up, and he looked out his window and he saw a large triangular object which he estimated to be about 50 metres by 30 metres by 20 metres with a white light on each corner. So a triangle with lights lit up at each point of it. He saw it approaching from the west, and it stopped abruptly at 224 degrees from his position at 30 degrees elevation. So this guy's talking in these sort of terms. So he's not like someone vaguely describing something they saw in the sky. He's given us degrees and elevations. His position, or he's given me his position, which I'm not going to read out because that's sort of technical. The lights went out approximately 30 seconds after he saw this triangle stop abruptly. Now, the black triangle was visible against the lighter night sky. This is at 5 o'clock in the morning. Light sparse cloud was evident and passing above the object. And the object was estimated to be, by this guy who's a retired aeronautical engineer, to be 500 metres to a kilometre from his position at a stationary height of about 600 metres. So he's describing the object being about 600 metres in the sky, which is really not that high in the scheme of objects that get reported in the sky. And he shone his high-powered LED spotlight at the object, and it would not illuminate even though light cloud above and beside it would. So I thought that was an interesting point. He's got a high-powered LED light, he's shone it at the object, the cloud is illuminated, but the object itself has stayed, I would use the word cloaked, if you like, and not visible to his powerful LED spotlight that he took the time to get out and to shine on the object. And the object appeared to absorb rather than reflect the light, and that's his words. The object appeared to absorb the light, not reflect it. So that's an interesting statement about the behaviour of the object. At 5:22 a.m, as he's shone his spotlight on it, all 3 lights on board illuminated, and this is a really great part about this case. All of a sudden, they shone an intense white light at his location, illuminating like daylight at 5:22 a.m, and the object departed at high speed to the southwest, 224 degrees for those of you playing at home, with lights operating until lost below the horizon. So when I rang him up and I spoke to him on the phone, and as a bit more to that, he said when it lit up, all the trees in the yard, the power lines, etc., were lit up by this bright, he described it as an LED type of a light, and birds started chirping.
So they're recognising that it's daylight.
Exactly, they're recognising that it's daylight. The birds have suddenly leapt into life because this big burst of lights come from this object. And you described there being no sound, no wind, no rush, and that it disappeared. So again, it's a lights in the sky case, but the witness is very credible, being a retired aeronautical engineer. He's provided a huge amount of information around where he was, and as part of my investigation, I got straight onto Tullamarine Airport, and I printed out the air traffic for that period in the morning, and there's not a single plane in the sky over Rosebud at that time in the morning. And I printed out the weather and tested whether the weather was matching his description, and yes, the weather was matching his description as per what he described to me. So that's a fairly interesting case. This is a case where I would say that the object has shown a cloaking ability. It's shown the ability to perhaps interact with the witness in terms that he describes the light as being shone directly at him or at his house. From a height of about 600 metres with a 50-metre triangle sitting there silently in the sky, and he described no sound, no wind, no rush of noise when this thing's departed. Okay, so this is an interesting object. It's an object I think that has been described around the world in many other instances and perhaps in other parts of Australia as well. Now what is the object? Is the object a alien spacecraft? Is it an American hardware? So that's where I have a lot of trouble with these triangles. What are we actually dealing with here? And interestingly enough, it's taken off back over the ocean. So where could it be going to? Antarctica, perhaps. That's just purely me speculating.
Yes, yeah.
But it's an interesting thing.
But that element of the lighting up like daylight, lighting up things around it like daylight, that's really quite typical of a lot of reports that we've received here.
Yeah.
Common
absolutely.
feature.
Common feature, and I've had that too, Sheryl, in many reports over the years that, animals behave strangely, birds start chirping, cats start meowing, all that sort of stuff going on, and I love animal cases. I love cases where an animal is responding directly to input from an object that's really shouldn't be there because animals behave in very set ways.
Yeah. So tell us about the RAF base. What did you want to share with us about that?
Okay, I'll share about the RAF base. Okay. Now the Sale RAF base was established in 1943 as a training facility, which it pretty much remains today. It's one of the RAF's smaller bases. It contains no fighter technology there. So there's no bombers, there's no Hornets, there's nothing like that located there. They train navies there, they train pilots there. They've just had a multi-million-dollar upgrade to the facility as well in the last 12 months. So it's known as a training facility, and it's known as the home of the Roulettes, which is the Air Force's acrobatic team. So they're always training above where I work and where I live. They're always out there doing their tricks. So you get a free RAF show down here, a couple of times a week. So, but interestingly about this little RAF base is the fact that it's in an area of Victoria where there's a huge UFO history. It's located centrally where UFOs have appeared, and I'm going to talk about a time period from 1947 through to the current era, where there's reports that have come from Sale, Maffra, Stratford, Bryagalong. Now that won't mean much to you guys in Queensland, but these are small country towns that are satellite to sail. Now, all of these reports are strong UFO cases over a 60-year period. These aren't necessarily simple lights in the sky cases. These are really good cases that are that by location to me suggest that certainly the RAF base in Sale may have some be of interest, at the very least, be of interest to UFOs. Now you can say, look, it's not Tyndall, it's not Richmond, it's not Williamtown, there's no hardware there, but in this area, and it's basically a big dairy area, there's a big irrigation scheme there, there's dairy farms, it's a very green and lush area. So all these little cases will tie in with what I want to sort of talk about, but the first one I want to talk about was in the winter of 1947 at Maffra, and Maffra is about 15 minutes from Sale. So all these little locations are quite close to the RAF base. Driving home with her son, the woman almost collided with a dazzling golden ball hovering just above the road. The woman could not stop the car and found it buffeted by wind. At the point of impact, the ball seemed to roll over on one side over a high embankment and disappeared behind tall maize, and then the rush of wind stopped. Well, that's a fairly crazy experience out on any Australian road. Particularly in the winter of 1947. That's a nice start to this zone period. That this woman's driving home, a dazzling golden ball hovering just above the road, buffeted by the wind. Okay, and, what the hell was that? So I'm going to leap forward to 1951. So on the 7th of February 1951, a pilot Flight Lieutenant Mackenzie was returning from a night exercise when he noticed a brilliant light on a bearing of 50 degrees from the East Sale airfield and on the coast. So he saw it out on the coast. The pilot was of the opinion that the light was a flare on the ground or at a very low altitude. And after burning for 2.5 minutes, there was a strong glow. An NCO on the tarmac duty also reported seeing an unusual glow in that area. I don't quite buy their explanation of that myself, per se, because at that period of time, the RAF was explaining everything as swamp gas, as flocks of geese, as everything like that. So here we have in the record a flight lieutenant returning from a night exercise talking about a bright light that he's seeing just off the coast. And they've described, and they've explained it away in a fairly innocuous kind of a way. Now I'm going to zoom forward a little further in time to 1972. And this case is an absolute ripper. And it occurred in an area, it's that close to the RAF base, it's not funny. It would only be probably about 10 minutes from the RAF base. Now this is a policeman. Now a policeman was out doing his night duties at 4:40 a.m. and he saw a bright light in the sky which appeared to become brighter and closer. And his name was Constable Jarvis, and he said the light dropped to the ground, then it rose up again. And the policeman says at 4:40 a.m, so he sees a light come out of the sky, descend to the ground, and then ascend into the sky again. So he's puzzled at 4:40 a.m. So the constable goes to the Sale RAF base. He drives there from that lonely country road, drives straight to the RAF base, and he inquires as to whether they had any aircraft flying on the 20th of September 1972. And later, a RAF member and Constable Jarvis returned out to the area where he saw it, and they saw a UFO again coming from the east. Suddenly there was a bright light over us, this is his description, and the police van. Then the light was gone. Constable Jarvis reported and added that the area of ground around the van was illuminated with a very bright white light, and here's the clincher, after the UFO had disappeared. So the police car, you can just imagine the police divvy van in 1972 sitting out there on a lonely country road. The object flies over from the east, illuminates the police car with the police member and the RAF guy, and they're probably RAF intelligence, both sitting in the car. The object takes off, and the glow remains around the car after they've gone.
So what do you make of that?
Well, Bill Chalker would like this, and I have talked to Bill about this because Bill likes solid light cases. And this is a classic case of what I think is a solid light case. Not only is it a solid light case, you've actually got two solid witnesses in a policeman and a RAF member. And it's the policeman who's made the report, and it made it into the Gippsland Times, which I find quite incredible too. That police generally don't talk about this sort of stuff. They're not interested. They don't have the imagination for it. They're too busy with road accidents and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very, I really do find that a very curious case in the fact that here's this light source has remained illuminating the car well after the object has disappeared. How do you explain that? And this is 10 minutes from the Sale RAF base, right?
Yeah. Do you know if there are any sort of effects on the vehicle or on the ground around it? You don't know, on the people? Nothing. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cold case work.
Yeah.
All I have is one paragraph from the Gippsland
Yeah.
Times. I've thought, everything you just asked me, I've thought about 110, and I've been to the location,
Yeah.
where it happened. I've been to the location where, in country areas, they call something like an intersection, it's got a local name. And and unless you're a local, you're never going to know that this intersection is known as, and this one's called Napper's Corner. So I had to do research in Sale to find out where the hell's Napper's Corner. It's got to be somewhere close,
Yes.
So I did find out where it was, and I know approximately the area where he would have had this encounter in 1972. So I'll move on just to keep going on a little bit further.
Well, we're right on the cusp of your time, but yes, very quickly.
Okay. All right. So there's been some other key cases. There was a great case in 1978 where a deer hunter was chased for hours out in the bush by a UFO nearby that area. Rosedale case in 1980 when the water tank was drained is one of the most famous cases in Australia in the world. That is less than 15 minutes from the RAF base. This is a great one from 1990. American servicemen were at the base doing training for oil rig protection from terrorist training. And when they were doing perimeters of the Sale RAF base, the US servicemen saw some lights descend into the south, and they described it as the lights behaved like a ballet. The lights were revolving and dancing around each other, low on the horizon just near the base, and then the light display took off into the sky. This is US servicemen reporting this to MUFON about the Sale RAF base.
I'm surprised at that.
Yeah, so look, I could go on forever. There's another quick one too, March 2006, in more recent times. A lady in Stratford's 15 minutes from the RAF base. She walked 3 o'clock in the morning, her cat wants to get out to go to the toilet, his pet's going to the toilet. She notices a large cluster of electric blue and red lights in the sky, not flashing, just sitting there like a large carousel. And she said it was made up of hundreds of these lights. She went back inside, looked out the other window and saw another one over her carport at 3:30 in the morning, big carousel, two independent carousel lights displays hanging silently in the sky. So that's if we've run out of time, we've run out of time.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
There's another urban legend around the Sale RAF base too, which I don't have time to go into, but I have started chasing that up as well about actual craft at the Sale RAF base, which I do find a bit of a stretch, but I've already done some work on that too. But I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that, the RAF, no matter where they are in the country, they attract UFOs. There's no question about that. And here in Gippsland, where we've got Sleepy Hollow East Sale RAF base, there's been a long history of UFOs.
I just want to ask you one question. When was the base built? Do you know?
1943.
43.
Yeah, it was actually built as a training facility for the Beaufort bombers in World War III. They had a lot of deaths there. They had 195 men die during training because the Beauforts had a fatal flaw where they would nosedive. So 195 men, the bomber crews were 4 men at a time, were killed all over Bairnsdale, Sale, that whole area. 190, they called it Death Alley.
You find that interesting that there's that sort of background to that?
Oh, I love that stuff, Sheryl. I think that's fantastic. And my work with the stuff. I introduced another little quick one too. Me and my partner Lana, we actually do night surveillance of the Sale RAF base. We've been out there in the Goldilocks hour of 3 a.m. about 5 or 6 times, different times of the year, to see what we can see at the RAF base at 3 a.m. So one interesting thing, we were out there one night, we've been out there 5 or 6 times. There's always lights on at the base. We went out there, it was one particular night, 3 a.m, not a solitary light on at the base, not even a night watchman's health safety light for him to see as he goes to make a cup of coffee. Not a stitch of light at 3 a.m. in the morning. You wouldn't have even known the base was there. So who knows what these bases are doing, in that little time of 3 o'clock. Farmers aren't up at 3 a.m. They get up at 5 a.m. So from 3 till 5, I call it the Goldilocks hour for military operations at those sort of bases, particularly in built-up areas like Victoria.
Very interesting, Ben. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us. I'd love to hear more about that. Perhaps we'll get you back again next year, huh?
Yeah, no worries. And I hope everybody enjoyed it and enjoy the rest of your night.
Great. Thanks very much, Ben.